Thank you. Muchísimas gracias. And saludos to everybody here. And thank you, President Margaret Moran, for that lovely introduction. It's great to be back here in lovely Orlando, Florida, with all of my friends and new friends here and colleagues. And it is tremendous to be able to be here to celebrate and congratulate LULAC for their 83rd anniversary. Felicidades, LULACers. Felicidades. I also want to recognize another good friend in the audience, un gran amigo por muchos años, your executive director, Brett Wilkes. Thank you so much for all that you do on public policy. I appreciate your work and working with the administration. And folks, as you know, this is a particularly special week, I think, for many of us. Don't you think? No solamente esta semana, pero las 2 semanas que han pasado. We have an extraordinary activities that have gone on that I think have really impacted our community in particular. The tremendous progress that LULAC, along with other groups, have contributed. And just yesterday, something that I was taken by surprise and so thrilled and happy that the Supreme Court's decision to uphold the Affordable Care Act occurred yesterday, a historic day for all Americans. And that is a victory for Latinos and the millions of Americans who will continue to benefit from this law. And did you know, by the way, that about 9 million Latinos will leave the ranks of the uninsured because now they will have protection. They will have coverage, health care coverage. And you know, that, in my book, is real progress. That is an impact. And so much of that progress is a result of decades of hard work on behalf of our community and from people in this room. For more than 80 years, LULAC has been one of those strong and very articulate voices representing Latinos and Hispanics around this country. And in Puerto Rico, because I know you're here, Puerto Rico. You've led the fight for better economic conditions, better education, stronger political influence and representation, and you have increased the civil rights of our community. LULAC has taught us to carry out our civic duty and exercise something so dear to so many of us, and that is exercising the right to vote. You've always understood that the strength of our nation is tied to the strength of our growing Latino community. And as you know, that regardless of where we come from, we are one American family, una familia americano. And you know what, folks? It is a new day. We're so fortunate to have a president like President Barack Obama that not only appreciates your hard work, but also has the courage to build on making it in this country, making it fairer in this country, not just for Latinos, but for everyone here in the United States. Let's give it up for President Barack Obama, who appointed the first Latina, Sonia Sotomayor, to the Supreme Court, who made it possible that our sister, nuestra hermana, Maria Carmen Aponte, could represent us again as ambassador to El Salvador. Un gran aplauso para ella. And earlier this month, as you know, the Department of Homeland Security issued a directive which now makes it possible for certain young people, we call them dreamers, who were brought to this country through no fault of their own, to step out of the shadows, live without fear, and continue to pursue the American dream. This DHS action, built on a series of steps the department has taken to focus our enforcement resources in the right places. And I'm proud to serve a president who understands These are deserving young people who are Americans in their hearts, in their minds, and should be Americans on paper too. Now let's be clear about this. You and I know this was not amnesty or immunity, but it was the right thing to do, period. Punto. But as the President has made clear, it is temporary. And Congress still needs to act to find a permanent resolution here. And we know that because justifiably that is where laws have to be made, permanent laws. We need Congress to get to work and pass the DREAM Act because these young people deserve a permanent solution. And for some of us here, this legislation has been our work for almost a lifetime, for many of us. For me, back in 1992, as a state assemblywoman in California, one of the first bills that I introduced at that time was to allow undocumented students greater access to state colleges. And it was based on provisions in a case law that was passed, in California regarding students at that time known as Leticia A students. It's basically the same premise, but we took that a little further. Unfortunately, back in that time, in the 90s, I was criticized, I was insulted, I received personal threats, and even recall having eggs thrown at my office. The bill eventually died, but you know what? The fight continued. The fight lived on. We knew that this struggle wasn't just about education or immigration. It was about opportunity, oportunidad, and access for Latinos in every sector of our society. So we kept working, and we kept growing. We kept building on this movement, and we kept recruiting powerful allies to our cause across this country. And back then, one of those allies was a little-known state senator from Illinois. He was a leader who had been speaking out about the injustice of our immigration policy since his days back in Chicago. Barack Obama had been leading on this issue for quite some time, and he continues to show that commitment as President of these United States. You know, we understand that there are difficult issues that we still face. And when some of the most anti-immigrant laws in the history of this nation were passed in places like Arizona and Alabama, the Department of Justice challenged the constitutionality of state laws in places like Arizona, Alabama, South Carolina, and Utah that attempted to seize the government's authority over immigration. And as you know, this week, the Supreme Court struck down most of the key provisions of the Arizona's anti-immigration law. At the same time, we remain concerned about the remaining provision of the Arizona law that requires local officials to check the immigration status of anyone they suspect to be here illegally. While it was heartening that the court made clear that no one could be detained by local authorities based solely to verify immigration status, and that officers may not improperly consider race or national origin, you and I know we have to remain vigilant. And that's where LULAC helps to step in. That's where all the civil rights organizations have to step in. That's where all our friends that are fighting on behalf of justice, social justice, have to be present and accounted for, because we still have a lot of work to do. The Department of Justice made it clear it will also vigorously enforce our nation's civil rights laws. And I am so delighted that yesterday you had Attorney General Eric Holder, who came to your convention. This man is incredible. I've had opportunities to work with him side by side, combating injustices around the country, but more importantly, helping our young people and helping to fight off those vicious laws that are single-handedly destroying our communities. But what we have to take account for is that this decision makes unmistakably clear that the Congress must act overall. And one of those acts that they have to do is work on comprehensive immigration reform. We can't stand by and see a patchwork of state laws because we know that that's not the solution to our broken immigration system. It's part of the problem. So while the Supreme Court's decision was in many ways a vindication, this administration will keep fighting. Continuamos luchando para nuestra comunidad y vamos a seguir adelante, ¿verdad? Y sí se puede. And we're going to continue to press Congress on immigration reform, and we will work hard to ensure that this law is enforced in every way that respects the civil rights of every American. We know that waves of immigrants have contributed significantly to America's success. I think I, along with many of you in this room, are products of what this great country can offer. A humble family like mine who came, my parents who came as immigrants to this country and raised their 7 children. And now to have one of them serve, the first time a Latina has ever served in the cabinet of these United States. That I attribute to the power of our community, to our community. So we know we have to bring people together, and we know that we have to work on a bipartisan effort. And we've tried, and we're not going to give up because we're still going to work to see that things get done and are completed. And especially now as the economy continues to recover, and so many Latinos are still looking for work. The number one issue in America today is getting our economy back on track. And laws like those passed by others from states only harm our community. I need to tell you, a few months ago I went to Alabama to reenact the historic march from Selma to Montgomery. And I know some of you in this room were there too marching. And I saw how Alabama's immigration policy was stifling the state's economic growth. Companies were choosing to take their jobs and revenue elsewhere. You could feel the uncertainty and fear, which is why I'm so proud that my department has been working every single day with workers, employers, stakeholders to make sure that our workers have safe workplaces and are paid their just wages for work that they do. I can't stress to you how critical these efforts are in these tough economic times, and especially for immigrant women. As Labor Secretary, I've been able to do all I can to make sure that all workers know that they have rights in this country. In my travels, I've met immigrant women who are just trying to provide a better life for themselves and for their families. Many face societal challenges that documented women face. Things like domestic violence, unequal pay, sexual harassment that are exponentially worse if they are not documented. When I hear stories of fearful women who have been treated terribly, or when I meet brilliant young girls with beautiful dreams who can't make them come true, yes, my heart breaks. And I think about my own family, about the people who raised me and how much they've meant to my life. Undocumented women struggle to get health care, which can affect their ability to earn wages and their general health overall. And what's worse, these women often don't speak up because of fear of being separated from their children and their families. As a daughter of immigrants, and certainly as your nation's first Latina Secretary of Labor, I feel I have an obligation to make sure that no woman ever has to make that choice. We've signed recently agreements with 10 embassies to provide information and educate vulnerable workers. We've launched a campaign to make it easier for vulnerable workers to know that they have rights and protections here in this country, and in many cases to let them know that they actually have rights to be paid minimum wage and overtime, regardless of what their status is. That has been the law for many, many decades, not just under this administration, but what we're doing now is enforcing that law. and we've begun the process of certifying what we call visas for victims of crime like trafficking and involuntary servitude. This is especially critical for immigrant women, as it will help us go after their abusers and let these women stay here to defend their rights. America succeeds, you know, when women succeed. That's why, since the beginning of my career in public service, on everything from education to healthcare to domestic violence, the military or immigration, I've highlighted the unique challenges and struggles that women face. I've been proud to stand with women from all walks of life to fight for dignity and respect and fairness and opportunities for a better way of life. At the Department of Labor, we've been proud to follow the President's lead in making women a top priority. We've continued to fight for equal pay for equal work and to finally close the pay gap. My Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs resolved 134 cases of employment discrimination affecting women and minorities just last year alone. This resulted in $12 million in remedies for victims of discrimination. We continue, you can clap. We continue to support working mothers and fight for more flexible workplaces. No woman should ever have to choose between motherhood and a fulfilling career. And that's why we've clarified recent provisions of the Family Medical Leave Act to ensure that an employee who takes over caring for a child receives parental rights to family leave, regardless of biological relationship. What that means, if you are an aunt and you are taking care of your niece, you can take work off to tend to that child without fear of losing your job. Most recently, we proposed rules to further extend the amount of leave members of military families can take to tend to their wounded service members and loved ones, veterans that are coming home. But we're doing even more to support military families and to support female veterans especially. That has been something that I know I have focused like a laser. At my request, we published a new trauma guide offering service providers, CBOs, knowledge on how to modify their practices and better serve the unique needs of female veterans. And we continue to fund job training programs for female veterans and all women to help them find good jobs and get on good career pathways that will lead to the middle class. Our efforts to support women are spread across every division at the Department of Labor. Our efforts to support women are wholesome, and they're making a difference, especially in my opinion, for the very people in this room. We're doing a lot at the Department of Labor and throughout the administration to address the immigration issue and on so many other venues that impact the Latino community and the entire country, largely because we have partnered with terrific groups like this, like LULAC and others in this room. But there's only so much that we can do. The real solution lies in Congress's ability to put politics aside and pass comprehensive immigration reform. So this fight is by no means over. We've got to keep the pressure on and the momentum going. And we need you. The President needs you now more than ever. The voice that you built on behalf of the Latino community will be critical to making sure we prevail. And I know that we can do it together because we've done it before. For generations, from farm workers to the civil rights movement, it has been the strength of our community and our fight for a better life, nuestras ganas, that has carried us through. That has continued to define us, not only our success as a people, but the incredible progress that our nation as a whole has been able to accomplish. So I believe that LULAC continues to have a very significant role in our society. One of the things that you do best is to remind people the importance of voting. And I want to urge you all to do that, because we can tip the balance in so many states where Latino populations have been growing, whether it's in the South, the Midwest, the Northeast, the Southwest, and other parts in the Northwest of our country. All over, Latinos and Hispanics are everywhere. We are no longer that small minority population. We are growing, we will continue to grow, and we have market-based power, and we do have political will. But we have to know when to exercise it. And you do it civically when you vote and when you participate. And when we encourage our young people, remind them to take advantage of educational opportunities that are still afforded to us, and to make sure that we remember to always give back. That is the difference between our community and others. We are reminded by our values and our parents to give back, siempre ayudando a nuestra comunidad. That's my motto. And I want to tell you, in conclusion, it's been my pleasure to be here, and I know that many of you wanted to see President Obama here, but you know, he sends me. He sends many of the administration officials that have come and spoke to you already, and people that are represented in this room by our administration. So I want to remind you, we have not forgotten who you are, because I know who you are, and I know how important LULAC and all of the work that you do. And without you, we're not going to get where we need to go as a community. So again, we are counting on the support and friendship, amistad, y también para seguir adelante. So with that, muchísimas gracias. Que Dios les bendiga a todos. Y, in closing, sí se puede. Thank you.